10 women who refuse to be broken. Number 10. She sued her slave owner, and it changed everything. This woman stood up to one of the most powerful politicians in America, while still enslaved. Her name was Charlotte Dupuy, and in 1829, she did something almost unthinkable. She sued her enslaver, Henry Clay, the U.S. Secretary of State, for her freedom. At a time when enslaved people had no legal standing, Charlotte filed a petition in Washington, D.C., demanding her liberty. She claimed that a previous owner had promised her freedom, and she was ready to fight for it. The case went to court, delaying her forced relocation to Kentucky. Though she ultimately lost, Charlotte remained in D.C. and was not returned to Clay for years. Even when finally sent to Kentucky, she was later freed in 1840, over a decade after her courageous legal stand. Her daughter Mary also gained her freedom, showing that Charlotte's resistance rippled across generations. And today, historians consider her lawsuit one of the earliest documented legal challenges by an enslaved woman in American history. Charlotte Dupuy didn't win her case, but she made history and helped pave the way for others who dared to demand justice. Number 9. A woman in the Union Army, the spy who fooled them all. She wasn't supposed to be there, not on the battlefield, not in the army, and definitely not in disguise. Sarah Emma Edmonds was born in 1841, but when war broke out, she didn't stay home and sew flags. She cut her hair, bound her chest, and became Franklin Thompson, a Union soldier. No one suspected a thing. She marched, she fought, she delivered mail on horseback through enemy lines, and then, she went even deeper. Disguised as an Irish peddler woman and sometimes a Southern laundress, she became a spy, slipping behind Confederate lines to gather secrets for the Union. Each time risking death, not just as a spy but as a woman in a man's army. She served for 2 years before illness forced her to flee. Afraid of being discovered, she vanished from the ranks, technically deserting, but she didn't disappear forever. After the war, she revealed everything, wrote a best-selling memoir, and in 1884 she became one of the only women ever granted a military pension for service in disguise. Sarah Emma Edmonds didn't just fight the enemy, she fought the rules, the norms, and history itself. Number 8. They tattooed her face. It's 1850. This girl was just 13 when her life was torn apart. Her family was traveling west when they were attacked by a Native American tribe. Most were killed. Olive Ann Oatman and her sister were spared, but only to be enslaved. She was dragged across the desert, starved and beaten. Her captors traded her like property, forcing her into servitude. Eventually she was sold to the Mohave people, who did something even more unexpected. They tattooed her chin with indigo ink, marking her as one of their own. She lived with them for 5 years, ate their food, spoke their language, wore their clothes, and when American authorities came to rescue her, she hesitated. The girl who had once been enslaved had become part of the tribe. When she finally returned to white society, people were obsessed. Her tattoo made her a living mystery. She gave public lectures, wrote a best-selling book, but she never spoke badly of the Mohave. To her dying day, no one really knew. Was she a prisoner, or had she become something more? Number 7. She fought poachers for 18 years and paid the price. She left behind comfort to live among giants. Dian Fossey wasn't just a primatologist, she was a warrior for wildlife. Deep in the Rwandan mountains, she built her life among mountain gorillas, creatures once hunted, feared, and misunderstood. She didn't just observe them, she named them, mimicked their sounds, and gained their trust. Silverbacks approached her, infants played beside her. Over time, they became her family. Her research spanned over 18 years, making her one of the most dedicated and influential gorilla experts in history. But poachers were always nearby, killing for profit. Diane fought back. She destroyed traps, confronted hunters, and exposed corruption. Her passion made her a target. In 1985, she was found murdered in her cabin, likely by those threatened by her activism. She died protecting the creatures she loved. But her work lives on. Thanks to her sacrifice, mountain gorillas still roam the misty forests. Dian Fossey didn't just study gorillas, she became their voice, and gave her life to save them. Number 6. Hid Jews in her home and paid the price. She wasn't a soldier, she wasn't a spy. Corrie ten Boom was a Dutch watchmaker, but when the Nazis invaded, she and her family chose to fight, with compassion. Their weapon? A secret room behind a wall in their home. There, they hid Jews fleeing from Nazi persecution. One knock on the door could mean death, but they opened it anyway, again and again. Eventually they were betrayed. Corrie, her sister, and her elderly father were arrested. Her father died just days later. Corrie and her sister were sent to Ravensbrück, one of the most brutal concentration camps for women. In the face of starvation, violence, and death, Corrie held on to faith. Her sister didn't make it out, but Corrie survived. She could have stayed bitter. Instead, she traveled the world, speaking about forgiveness, even toward her captors. Corrie didn't just resist evil, she forgave it, and taught the world to do the same. Would you have had the courage to forgive? Number 5. Swam 100 miles at 64 with no shark cage. At 64 years old, she swam over 100 miles, without a shark cage. Diane Nyad had already failed 5 times. Each attempt ended in pain, storms, stings, and near death. But she didn't quit. Born in 1949, Nyad was once a record-breaking swimmer in her 20s. But her biggest dream, to swim from Cuba to Florida, haunted her for decades. In 2013, after 35 years away from the sport, she dove back in. No one had ever completed the 110-mile journey without protection from sharks. She would be the first. For nearly 53 hours straight, she swam. No sleep, no stopping, just her, the waves, and jellyfish-infested waters. She vomited from salt water, hallucinated from exhaustion, and battled strong currents. But she kept going. When she finally stepped onto the shores of Key West, she said just 5 words: never, ever give up. At 64, Diane Nyad didn't just break a record, she shattered the limits of human will. Number 4. 7 years in a crawlspace, her hidden fight for freedom. She was hunted, not for escape, but for control. Harriet Jacobs was born into slavery in 1813. Her master didn't want her in the fields, he wanted to own her body. Relentlessly pursued, threatened, and harassed, Harriet refused to become his property in every way, so she vanished, into a crawlspace. For 7 years, she hid in an attic barely 9 feet long and 3 feet high. No light, no heat, no freedom, just hope. She couldn't stand upright, could barely move. But from that space she watched her children grow, never revealing herself, never giving in. Eventually she escaped north. And she didn't stay silent. In 1861 she published Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, exposing the brutal truths of slavery from a woman's perspective, the abuse, the terror, and the resistance. Harriet Jacobs didn't just survive, she wrote herself into history, a mother, a fugitive, an abolitionist, and a voice that slavery could not silence. Number 3. She lost her leg, then climbed Everest. She was thrown from a moving train, left broken, bleeding, and with one leg crushed beyond saving. Arunima Sinha had been a national-level volleyball player in India, but that night, during a robbery attempt, everything changed. Thieves tried to snatch her bag. When she resisted, they pushed her off the train and into the path of another one coming the opposite way. Doctors amputated her leg. Most people assumed her dreams were over, but Arunima had other plans. Lying in that hospital bed, she made a decision. She would climb Mount Everest. People called her crazy, said she wouldn't survive. She trained for 2 years, on a prosthetic leg. She battled snowstorms, altitude sickness, and pain most of us can't imagine. In 2013 it took her 52 days, but she did the impossible. Arunima Sinha became the first female amputee in the world to summit Mount Everest. But she didn't stop there. She went on to climb the highest peaks on every continent, not despite her tragedy, but because she refused to let it define her. She turned a moment of violence into a lifetime of victory. Number 2. Kidnapped by ISIS, enslaved, and then... This woman was kidnapped, enslaved, and subjected to unimaginable horror. At just 21 years old, Nadia Murad, a Yazidi from northern Iraq, was taken by ISIS when they invaded her village in 2014. Her mother was executed, her brothers were killed, and Nadia, along with thousands of other Yazidi women, was forced into sexual slavery. She was sold, beaten, raped, and traded between militants like property. But Nadia never gave up hope. After 3 months in captivity, she found a way to escape, fleeing through the streets of Mosul with the help of a Muslim family who risked their lives to protect her. Nadia didn't stay silent. She told the world what happened, loudly, fearlessly, and with unwavering strength. She became the voice of an entire community, testifying before the United Nations, demanding justice for victims of genocide and sexual violence. In 2018 she became the first Iraqi and the first Yazidi to win the Nobel Peace Prize. But more than that, she became a symbol of survival, dignity, and the power of speaking truth to terror. Would you have had the courage to speak out? Number 1. Fell 10,000 feet and walked out alive. This girl fell 10,000 feet from the sky, and survived. Juliane Koepcke was just 17 years old when her plane was struck by lightning over the Amazon rainforest. The aircraft disintegrated mid-air, sending her plummeting 2 miles down, still strapped to her seat. Miraculously, she survived the fall, but she was alone, injured, and stranded in one of the most unforgiving jungles on Earth. With a broken collarbone, deep wounds, and maggots infesting her injuries, she relied on the survival skills her parents had taught her. For 11 days, she walked through the dense rainforest, following a river, drinking rainwater, and fending off deadly wildlife. Then, finally, she was found. A group of local fishermen discovered her, barely alive, and took her to safety. Juliane Koepcke's survival is nothing short of a miracle, a true testament to human resilience, instinct, and sheer will to live.